Hello, everyone. I'm Governor John Carney. Thank you for joining us today. We have a very important program and declaration. It's our annual proclamation and observance of Black History Month, the month of February. We have esteemed members of our community from up and down our state that you'll hear from in a minute. I can't think of a year where Black History Month has been more important than it is this year, as we here in Delaware and across our country reconcile our history, not always a good history of race and oppression in our state. We have folks that know a lot about that history, active today and helping us move forward as a state. And we have Steve Mars, our state archivist, who's going to start us off. We have Dr. Reba Hollingsworth, who is just a diamond for us all in our state, a former professor at Delaware State University, the vice chair of our Delaware Heritage Commission, and just a fount of knowledge of Delaware's history, some of which is not pleasant history, but history that we all need to know to reconcile that with our present so we can move forward more positively to the future. We also have Charlotte King, who's the chair and founder of the Southern Delaware Alliance for Racial Justice, and we'll hear from her and the really important work that she and her partners are doing. We have Reverend Dr. John Moore, who is an advocate and who is a performer of sorts, who always makes history come alive for so many of us during Black History Month, and we appreciate his presence with us today. We also have Representative Kendra Johnson, who is a member of the Delaware House of Representatives. She's here today representing the legislature and representing the Legislative Black Caucus. Thank you all for joining us for this important proclamation, observance of Black History Month. We also have Pam, who's here as our sign language expert. And so with those introductions, Steve, why don't you take it away and tell us a little bit about what's happening at the Delaware State Archives.
Thank you, Governor. I certainly bring you greetings from the Delaware Public Archives and want to welcome you to this great occasion whereby today we are recognizing Black History Month in Delaware. For more than a decade, the Delaware Public Archives has annually commemorated Black History Month with the unveiling of an exhibit that was capped off with the governor issuing a proclamation celebrating February as Black History Month. Due to the pandemic, this year's Delaware Public Archives exhibit will be a bit different than it usually is. To coincide with the governor's proclamation issuance, the Delaware Public Archives will release a new virtual exhibit titled Delta Sigma Theta and Women's Suffrage, which is an online adaptation of the physical exhibit that was unveiled last year at the archives, but due to the onset of the pandemic, became unavailable for public viewing. This virtual exhibition details the history of Delta Sigma Theta sorority with historical photographs, documents, and newspaper clippings, and chronicles the sorority's involvement with the first women's suffrage procession in Washington, D.C. in 1913. In this recent centennial anniversary of the passage of the 19th Amendment, giving women the right to vote, we note that many were involved, and while many received accolades, history clearly shows that certain members of the many did not receive recognition for their efforts. In Lawrence Ross's book entitled The Divine Nine, he notes in almost 500 pages the impact on America's social culture and history made by African-American sororities and fraternities. His synopsis is African-American sororities and fraternities are a unique and vital part of the past century's African-American history. Here there was and still is unity of purpose for achievement, betterment, and community service. From pioneering work in the suffragette movement to momentous efforts in the civil rights era, and today their untiring energies in the new age of countless challenges, African American sororities and fraternities remain steadfast as they continue to encourage, to educate, and motivate its members in bettering each other and society. Today, we are pleased to recognize the Delta Sigma Theta sorority and their involvement with the women's suffrage movement in the early 1900s, and are pleased again to present Delta Sigma Theta and women's suffrage as an exhibit at the Delaware Public Archives.
Thank you very much, Steve. And I remember it well, our conference there at the archives with all the red and white deltas there in our presence. They were graced our presence, and we heard quite a bit about their work for suffrage and civil rights here in Delaware and frankly nationally as well. And our Congresswoman was with us as well, Lisa Blunt Rochester, and we had frankly a better kind of reading of our proclamation than we're doing virtually this year. But thank you for continuing that virtual exhibition and celebrating the important work of the Deltas and the Divine Nine and the African American fraternities over the years. Dr. Reba Hollingsworth was with us there as well. She's our esteemed Vice Chair of the Delaware Heritage Commission, and just a tremendous treasure in our state. Dr. Hollingsworth.
Thank you very much. I am really pleased to have been invited to participate again this year. And today I want to share a little bit about how February became the Black History Month that it is, and also talk a little bit about its founder, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who actually had connections here in Delaware as well. The story of Black History Month began really in 1915 when Carter Godwin Woodson, a noted African-American scholar, educator, and historian, witnessed how Black people were underrepresented in books and conversations that shaped the study of American history. He and Jesse Moreland formed the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, an organization dedicated to researching and promoting achievements of Black Americans. Dr. Woodson said, "If a race has no history, it has no worthwhile tradition. It becomes a negligible factor in the thought of the world, and it stands in danger of being exterminated." The celebration of Black History Month began as Negro History Week, which was created in 1926, the year of my birth, by Dr. Carter G. Woodson. The second month in the week in the month of February was chosen to coincide with the birthdays of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln. Black schools and communities nationwide celebrated Negro History Week by acknowledging the contributions of Negroes to the history of America. As a matter of fact, when I was in the third grade, I met Dr. Carter G. Woodson when he came to Milford to visit his niece, Emma G. Woodson, who was one of my teachers at Milford School. During the Civil Rights Movement and into the mid-1960s, it was noted that the third grade United States history classes only mentioned 2 Black people since the Civil War, which led to Black History Week becoming a month-long celebration. In February 1976, President Gerald Ford decreed Black History Month a national observance to honor the 2 often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans throughout history. Each year since 1976, presidents have decreed February as Black History Month, and countries around the world actually celebrate this month with us. Some prominent Black Americans are Madam C.J. Walker, who was the first woman to become a self-made millionaire. Not the first Black, but the first woman. Shirley Chisholm, whom I also knew, was the first Black woman elected to the United States House of Representatives. John Mercer Langston, the first Black man to become a lawyer in 1854. Hiram Rhodes Revels, the first Black man elected to the United States Senate in 1870. Robert Johnson, the first Black billionaire who sold BET cable network in 2001. Henry Sampson, the inventor of the cell phone, which I'm sure every one of you have. And of course, Barack Obama, the first Black president of the United States. And there are thousands and thousands of Black inventors, entertainers, business people, prominent people, and many others going all the way back to biblical times. And you will find the contributions of Blacks coming all the way through Africa. All we have to do is really look. So let's celebrate Black people by teaching Black history as American history throughout the educational system in every grade, throughout every academic year. And I thank you for letting me share this little bit with you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hollingsworth, for sharing, as you say, just a little bit, just a slice of African-American history in our state. The presence of Americans of African descent, as we know, goes back 400 years, far beyond many of the immigrant populations, like my ancestors who came here in the 1840s and have been a part, a really integral part of our nation and the development of our nation for 400 years. And for hundreds of those years were important part of our society without sharing the rights and privileges of citizenship that is promised to the rest of us. The idea of those soldiers who fought from the beginning in the Revolution and every world war in between without those same rights and privileges is just an indication of the belief that African Americans have in this country and their resiliency as a people through the years. When you mentioned that you were born in 1920, I was going to mention at the top that you're approaching 100 years on this planet, but I figured I better not do that. But I mentioned that you were born in 1926. I did quick math to determine that you're 95 or close to 95 years.
Close to 95, yes.
And just an incredible citizen of our state, and we appreciate you being with us today and for your work on the Delaware Heritage Commission. I should also mention the Delaware Historical Society has an African American history exhibit that they're expanding on and building, and I recommend it to all the citizens of our state. Thank you, Dr. Hollingsworth. Charlotte King is joining us as well, and chair and founder of the Southern Delaware Alliance for Racial Justice. Thank you, Charlotte, for joining us.
Thank you, Governor Carney, for giving me the opportunity and privilege of participating in the proclamation ceremony in honor of Black History Month. I speak for the Southern Delaware Alliance for Racial Justice, which has as its vision to end racism and its corrosive consequences on everyone. And as we have seen in recent times, on the survival and strength of this republic, our nation. This vision informs our mission to educate, inform, and advocate for racial justice, equality, and fair opportunity. While I appreciate the federal and state proclamations honoring Black History Month, it will take every month, every day, and perhaps many years to have all recognize that Black history is American history. President Ronald Reagan said in one of his proclamations that understanding the history of Black Americans is a key to understanding the strength of our nation. While we can all take the opportunity, that is the month of February, to learn about all that is Black in America, the music, art, literature, food, talk, contributions and achievements of Black Americans, the historical and ongoing challenges to growth, survival, and acceptance, The Alliance will offer opportunities for meaningful awareness of the struggles that began 401 years ago and to a significant degree continue to the detriment of everyone. While America's original sin of slavery is shameful, it must be talked about in order to bring real truth to meaningful power. We must all pause and consider how much we don't know about the never-ending chapter of American history, its lasting impact on African Americans, and how it informs our current and future beliefs and behavior. I am proud of Delaware. Though it took us more than 50 years to ratify the 13th Amendment, which ended slavery, we are only one of 9 states that has issued an apology for our 225-year history of slavery and segregation. In February 2016, our Delaware House of Representatives passed a resolution, which was signed by then Governor Markell, which apologized, quote, on behalf of the people of Delaware for the state's role in slavery and the wrongs committed against African Americans and their ancestors who suffered under slavery and the Jim Crow laws and the Black codes that we created here in Delaware. Since then, I believe that our governor and legislative leaders have worked to make that resolution more than a symbol, more than words, more than good intentions. The time is now in the year 2021, in the 151st session of the General Assembly, to eliminate the vestiges of racism and to establish law and public policy which will ensure equality of opportunity for all. And again, I thank you for the opportunity for allowing me to participate and look forward to a successful legislative session where we really do keep the commitment we made in that symbolic gesture of an apology. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charlotte, and well said, that our goal ought to be to make sure that Black history is American history and an integral part of American history and not something that needs to be dealt with separately, but incorporated as we teach all of our children the history of our state and our country. And for the challenge that we all have in our roles as elected officials to eliminate, if you will, the vestiges of a system of oppression and discrimination in our state. And frankly, that is the charge for our work. And we'll hear from Representative Kendra Johnson in a minute. But before we hear from Representative Johnson, we have Reverend Dr. John Moore with us once again. Reverend Moore, thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's an humbling opportunity to be here. When I was asked to be a participant, it just blew me away. So thank you so much. You know, I want to start with the second stanza of the Negro National Anthem that says, "Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with a steady beat, have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed. For we have come over the way that with tears have been watered, we have come, trudging the path through the blood of the slaughtered, out from the gloomy past, till now we stand at last where the white gleam of our bright stars cast." And when I reflect on the words of Dr. Hollingsworth and her talking about Dr. Carter Woodson and the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History and the beginning of Negro History Week, which led to just 50 years ago at Kent State, the first celebration of Black History Month in 1970, to where we are today. I'm so proud of the work of what I do. I'm the Director for Philanthropy and Engagement for the United Way of Delaware, as well as serving as the Vice Chair for the Delaware Coalition of Faith-Based Partnerships with Michael Beale. And it is very critical that we continue to keep this history going forward. At the United Way of Delaware, we're deeply involved in what's called the Delaware Racial Justice Collaborative, where we're working closely with over 200 stakeholders throughout the state, not just African Americans, but people of every background, faith, economic, socioeconomic situation, coming together to address discrimination and inequality. And we're making these things work because we stand on the words of Dr. Martin Luther King that said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We're caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny, And whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. You see, there are many people of color in this state who are frustrated, who are angry because they see the inequalities that are happening throughout the first state, chief state, the state of the president of these United States. And so to be able to address them, the Delaware Racial Justice Collaborative have come together to talk about these inequalities, and that's our focus. We want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to get a good job. We want to make sure that every parent can send their child to a great school. We want to make sure that everybody is able to have great banking so that they can take care of their rainy days and make sure that their children have an opportunity to go to college. Because in the end, that's what it's all about. You know, we thank God for all the sacrifices that have been made for those of the past, present, and those of the future. And so when I reflect on some of those great names of the scientists, of the business people, those in government, those in art, those in athletics, what they have done is created a fire of fuel for our future. For I stand on the words that I reflect on often that comes from the great liberator, Frederick Douglass, who said, where justice is denied, where poverty is enforced, where ignorance prevails, and where any one class is made to feel that society is an organized conspiracy to rob, oppress, or degrade them, then neither persons nor property shall be safe. And so as we work with this Delaware Racial Justice Collaborative, we want to make sure that we're pushing forward the issues that makes Black History Month as significant in 2021 as it has been in the past. And then again, standing on my hero's words, where we won't judge people by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And one of the greatest statements Dr. King made in that I Have a Dream speech was, the marvelous new militancy, which has engulfed the Negro community, must not lead us to a distrust of all white people. For many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny and their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. So let us continue to march forward. And as Sister Charlotte King said, Black history is American history, and it's all of our history. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Reverend Dr. John. Thank you for being with us again, for connecting those inspirational words of leaders of the Negro National Anthem to our challenge today, which is to assure that every child born in the state of Delaware, that every family in our state has an opportunity to be successful and to thrive, and to connect that history, as I said, some dark days and some better days with the present, so that we can move forward in a positive direction. And thank you for bringing our own reference to our own native son, the new president of the United States, who served as vice president to the first African-American president of our state, and the leadership that he brings to our nation now, which he did to our state for so many years. Representative Kendra Johnson is here to provide some comments from the legislative branch, and thank you for your leadership in the General Assembly in helping us all reach these mutual objectives.
Thank you, Governor. I am thrilled to be here this afternoon with everyone. On behalf of Delaware's Legislative Black Caucus, our founder, Representative Stephanie T. Bolden, Vice Chair, Representative Chakwocha, immediate past Chair, Senator Darius Brown, immediate past Vice Chair, Sherry Dorsey Walker, and all Black Caucus members. Greetings and happy Black History Month. During this month and every month, let us all remember the resilience of African Americans, from our enslavement to ascending to the highest offices of our country. It is that resiliency, intellect, and the hopes and dreams of our ancestors that flows through our bodies and continues to allow us to thrive in a country that oftentimes has its foot on our necks. But through it all, we continue to persevere and to share our talents with the world. We are carried on the shoulders of legends such as Martin Luther King Jr., John Lewis, Cicely Tyson, James Baldwin, and so many more. As we embark upon this 8th day of Black History Month, I urge you all to do more, to learn more about the history, the struggle, and the culture of African Americans, not just yesterday, not just during the notable civil rights era, but right here, right now, today. Far too many African Americans are still suffering the remnants of Black codes, Jim Crow, redlining, segregation. It is weaved in every aspect of society, in every American institution. The world watched in horror the killing of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and countless others whose names and families are still mourning the tragedy of their death. And as the world watched in horror, finally, the myth of what it's like to be Black in America was no longer a myth. It is indeed a reality for far too many. This year, as we celebrate Black History Month, commit to joining us in standing up for social justice, for equity, because injustice is baked into every aspect of society. We must acknowledge this truth and stand firm together to eradicate systematic racism and all isms. Consider participating in one or both of the Delaware Legislative Black Caucus's task force. We have a law enforcement task force. We have the African American task force. Or consider participating in one of our many subcommittees that have been created to evaluate disparities and make recommendations for changes as we seek to create an environment that truly embodies justice for all. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you very much, Representative Johnson. Thank you to you and your growing number of Legislative Black Caucus members who are doing incredible work in our state Senate, in the state House of Representatives. More members than I think ever in our history, certainly and ever in my memory, working as in public service over the last 30 years. And thank you for connecting us once again to the tragic murder of George Floyd and others in similar circumstances as inspiration to turn ugly history into positive and constructive action, where all of us reach across the aisle and across dividing lines to make progress and to make sure that every Delawarean has the rights that are guaranteed in the Constitution of our country and our state. And I do have now a proclamation in observance of Black History Month. We've heard from each of you the challenges that we have. I think each of you have touched on a point that's important for all of us to remember during this month, and that this shouldn't just be one month, but it should be part of our Delaware and American history 365 days of the year. So with that, I'm going to read the proclamation. It reads, whereas Black History Month presents an important opportunity to honor the African American members of our community, reflect on the progress our country has made, and acknowledge the work we have yet to do. And whereas we encourage Delawareans to learn the story of those who fought against prejudice and discrimination, advance the cause of civil rights, and strengthen families and communities in our state and our nation. And whereas we have a responsibility to teach the next generation about this important history and to promote equality and acceptance in our schools, our workplaces, and our communities. And whereas African American men and women deserved sincere recognition for their significant contribution to Delaware's economic, cultural, spiritual, and political history and development. And whereas we are proud to join together as Delawareans to recognize Black History Month in honor of the many contributions African-American individuals have made to the state of Delaware and to our nation. Now, therefore, we, John Carney, Governor, and Bethany Hall, Long Lieutenant Governor, do hereby declare February 2021 as Black History Month in the state of Delaware and urge all citizens to observe the month of February with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities that emphasize the history and contributions of Delawareans of African descent. Our Lieutenant Governor has already signed it, and now so have I, to Black History Month in the state of Delaware. Thank you all. Thank each of you for your work in promoting Black history and culture in our state, and for taking up the cause as we make improvements and guarantee the rights and privileges to all of our all the citizens here in Delaware.